Yo, what's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy, Kevin Forte, and we're taking a look today at the Arizona Coyotes. There seems to be some rumors going around about defenseman Jakob Chychrun, the star-studded D-man on the Coyotes. Sounds like the Coyotes are willing to listen to offers on their big-name defenseman, so we'll be talking about that today. So, from the Jeff Merrick show the other day, him and Elliot Friedman were talking about the potential of a Jakob Chychrun trade. And, the thing about Chychrun that's you have to really look at, he has a great contract. Right now, $4.25 million per season for the next 3 years. This is a really nice contract and is going to definitely be enticing to some teams. You're looking at Jakob Chychrun that, for all else, he's a guy that is going into the prime of his NHL career, and we just don't think the Coyotes are ready to win yet. And I think that is kind of coming into the equation here with Chychrun, the fact that maybe he would be willing to move on from the Yotes. So this is the NHLrumors.com. They're a great website too. The one thing I asked was, has there been a trade request here? And I was told in multiple places the answer to that question was no. So that is not on the table. It's not like, Chychrun's like actively upset with the Coyotes and is trying to get himself out. That hasn't been the case at all. It's been really more of, it's just logistics. Like, does it make sense for the Coyotes to keep a guy when they're not really in a spot where they can contend? Now, other names are going to be brought up. If Jakob Chychrun is brought up as being ready to go, who is off the table at this point? If Jakob Chychrun is on the table, you got to think Clayton Keller. Again, his contract kind of makes it hard for him to move, but Clayton Keller, Jakob Chychrun, all those guys are available then. If we're hearing this about Chychrun, nobody is off the table in Arizona. Now, this was following that up. However, I do think that the Coyotes know that this isn't easy on Chychrun, and this is the prime of his career, and that his value will never probably be higher than it is right now. Even though it's been a rough start to the season, I think people wisely understand that it's just the circumstance he's in, and it's not a true reflection on him as a player. They are taking calls. They are gauging it. I've been told that the ask is massive, but I've also been told, although teams admit it's massive, it's not making them run away from Chychrun. I think there is an understanding of the contract, the player. As you say, it's a great contract. The situation in Arizona is in, and just the overall circumstance of this, even though the price is big, teams aren't running away from him. But there is interest, and it's just a matter of how Arizona determines it wants to go about this. So here's the thing you have to realize here. So Bill Armstrong, the Coyotes GM, that's a very good point. The Coyotes aren't in a spot where they can make the playoffs, obviously, right? We're not talking about the Coyotes as a playoff team. So if you don't have a playoff team, you're basically wasting his talent away. And you have to look at it in this terms too, in terms of value, right? If you want him at maximum value, you want to trade him right now so you could get maximum value back so you could make your team in the future when you guys are a contender, you could be better during that time. So I do understand where the logistics are here. The problem is, where are you going to find another Jakob Chychrun in a trade? That's going to be difficult to do if you're the Coyotes, unless you're doing a 1-for-1, which teams probably aren't going to do for Chychrun. So it's going to be one of those deals where you're looking at multiple assets. You're probably looking at 2 first-round picks, a solid former first-round pick, probably similar to the Jack Eichel trade, but it's going to probably be more. And the fact that the Coyotes have the leverage, the fact that there's no injury history there's no bad blood between, Chychrun and the organization, the optics, we're talking about just purely trade ways. This is not a terrible spot for the Coyotes to be in. They do have some leverage in a deal. Now, Jakob Chychrun was taken 16th overall in that 2016 NHL draft. I've been saying for a while, once we get into the All-Star break or the winter break, the Olympic break, whatever it is, I have to make this video because that 2016 NHL draft just continues to surprise people, including myself, just how things have turned out. The Bruins, those 3 draft picks in a row, Zach Senyshyn, Jakub Chychrun, and what's his name, Jake DeBrusk, who got picked right after him. Matt Barzal of the Islanders. Jakob Chychrun was selected. Kyle Connor. I have to do a video on that because that just is beyond nuts. Now, here's an interesting verdict, right? Where is he from? He's from Boca Raton, Florida, which, I mean, it's fairly far from the Florida Panthers, but there is something to be said that could work. Now, what would the Florida Panthers have to give up? It would be expensive. You're probably looking at a situation, you'd probably have to give up Anton Lundell, probably one of those defensemen, maybe maybe not Mackenzie Weegar, but probably one of those better defensemen, and draft picks. And the Florida Panthers, I don't think, are against trading those draft picks. Now, the problem is they also traded their draft pick this year to the Buffalo Sabres. That pick has already been dealt. So now you're dealing with draft picks in the little bit further away future. That is a little bit of a risk if the Florida Panthers decide to go down that route. We've seen teams do it in the past. The Matt Duchene trades, how the teams ended up getting third overall picks in return for him. So there is going to be a situation here where Jakob Chychrun, like I said, 23 years old, a first-round draft pick. He's played in the NHL now. This is his 6th NHL season. He is going to be an asset to teams around the league. Now, like I said, he's making $4.6 million till the summer of 2025. He will be an unrestricted free agent at that point. And I think, unless he really, really loves Arizona, I think the assumption is he will leave the Coyotes if he's not dealt before that point. And you look at his career, 128 points in over 300 NHL games as a defenseman is really solid. I mean, you look at last season, perfect example, 41 points in 56 games. Those are numbers you see from forwards, not defensemen. He's been very, very good. Now, look at his stats this year, definitely a little bit less. 7 points in 26 games this season. But again, the Coyotes are not that great of a team. So you have to look at the team around him. If he's passing the puck up to a guy on a odd man rush who can't score goals, you can't put all the blame there on Jakob Chychrun. He can't do everything as much as he'd probably like to think he can. So now the question is, like I said, what teams would be interested? Well, I already mentioned the Florida Panthers. There's that, fairly close. They're fairly close to each other in terms of his hometown in Boca Raton to Miami. And then you also have the Islanders. Now, supposedly the Islanders were talking about Jakob Chychrun last summer. This past, year in 2021, that was a big discussion point, and that is something that I think the Islanders may circle back on. Because the Islanders have been, supposedly, this is from, I don't want to make this about the Islanders, but this was the other day. So basically, an anonymous current coach in the NHL said about the Islanders, we feel their defense are way too slow for today's game, and if they don't get elite goaltending, they will get exposed. When they give up goals and struggle to score 5-on-5, and if the power play struggles, they can't win. So, if the Islanders are hearing that, again, I'm sure Lou Lamoriello takes that with a grain of salt, but it's still out there. And that's been a verdict that has been out there since the beginning of the season. Teams are dumping the puck in on Big Zdeno Chara's side. He's like limping to the corner to get the puck. He can't skate anymore. And they end up beating him to the puck. They get the puck behind the net, and they get a guy in front, and they end up scoring. So that is something, if the Islanders want to fix that, Jakob Chychrun could absolutely do that. So the Florida Panthers and the Islanders would absolutely be great fits for Jakob Chychrun. With that said, there are teams on the West Coast I'm sure that would be interested. The LA Kings would definitely like to add a defenseman. I'm sure the Vegas Golden Knights wouldn't say no. They don't really have the cap space. They could make it work. But the problem is, they're not going to trade in their division. You're not going to see them trade with the Vancouver Canucks, probably. Again, they're in the Central Division, but I don't see that deal happening. There's too much on the table, but I wonder what teams are really going to look at Jakob Chychrun legitimately. And, again, teams don't seem to be, running away from the offer that is on the table for him. So the question is, what's the price for Chychrun? And we'll probably start to get more of that information as we get closer to the trade deadline. The problem is, I don't see this deal getting done till next summer, if I'm going to be completely honest. Unless the Coyotes are so gung-ho on getting this done, and that is toward the top of their priority list, it doesn't make much sense for the Coyotes to make that big of a splash right now, mid-season. With that said, though, there is always that, they have more value here. They could say, listen, you're going to have him for 3 more playoff runs. You're going to have to fork up a little bit more, which means some teams, well, hopefully all the teams will come together and say, listen, we're going to wait till the summer to deal with this, and we could probably get a slightly cheaper player in Jakob Chychrun. But at the end of the day, teams will turn their back on each other if it means they get the deal they want and they get the guy they want. And that could definitely be on the table. Like I said, the Montreal Canadiens would also be an interesting player for Jakob Chychrun. I think Montreal, the Islanders, and the Florida Panthers seem like 3 legitimate contenders for him. Not to mention, I think the Pittsburgh Penguins would definitely be in that mix as well. They would definitely like to add some defense to